and welcome to the Guides for Brides Wedding podcast. Things may look a little different around here, especially if you're watching on YouTube. If you've listened to the podcast before, welcome back. I hope your wedding planning is going well. And if you're new here, maybe you just got engaged over Christmas and have no idea where to start. Hello. Here on this podcast, we talk about all things weddings. With the help of special guests, we go over everything you could need to know about your wedding. And this season is going to be a really good one. So today, we're starting at the very beginning. We'll be going over the important things to know now you're newly engaged. And our guest this week is currently in your shoes. She's planning her wedding and knows all the tips to help you in your wedding planning journey. She's also normally the host of this podcast.
I am. It's very weird being on the other side.
Hello, Nikita.
Hello, Jess. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Excellent.
Excellent reading of the script there.
Thank you. Would you like to tell us about how you got engaged and everything like that to start us off?
Sure. So, I got engaged back in June 2022. It was actually the summer solstice. Not planned to be that way, by the way.
That's cute, though.
Yeah, it is
Nice
cute. It's a
long
nice
day.
date. It's
Yeah.
a nice date to remember. But he didn't plan it like that.
Oh.
Like he bought a ring and then he kind of panicked and was like, I don't know what to do with this, and decided on the day that he was gonna propose.
And you've told us a little bit about the how he sourced the ring, and I really love this story. Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. So, because obviously I work in the industry, my partner knows that if he says anything that is odd or anything like that, I'll be like, oh.
Yes.
Oh.
What was that?
What
Sorry?
was that? Oh, interesting. Okay. So he needed an excuse to take time out of our joint booked annual leave week to go to London and pick up my engagement ring. And so, of course, he would be like, oh, I need to go to London. And I'd be like, oh, can I come with?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go together.
Make a week of it.
Let's go have a day. And he needed to stop me from doing that.
Yeah.
So he didn't tell anyone that he was planning on proposing. He didn't even ask my dad, but that's probably my own fault. Because I have said in the past that I don't like the idea of people asking parents or dads if they can propose to their daughters, because, you know, I'm not anyone's property.
And even if, like, I'm sure your dad loves your partner, but, like, even if he didn't, it's your choice. Like...
Yeah, precisely. And that has always been my attitude. So, but he didn't tell anyone apart from his now best man, who went with him to go and get the ring. And the story is that he looked at his phone and was like, oh, I've got a message and from so-and-so. And I was like, okay, do tell.
Exciting.
Do tell. He's like, oh, he wants me to go with him to London on Wednesday, I think it was. He needs to go to an antique shop, a very specific antique shop, to go buy a gift for his parents from him and his brothers. And I was like, right, that's slightly weird, but okay.
Yeah, a niche opportunity.
Yeah, and he was like, well, yeah, we're just going to go out and make a day of it, might do a bit of shopping on Oxford Street after, that kind of thing. And I was like, oh yeah, cool, sounds good, enjoy. Obviously I was like, totally, like, this is a weird one. And even his parents, because they were like, oh, what's everyone doing this week? And I went, oh, he's going to London with so-and-so.
Yeah.
And they were like, why are you going to London? And we just had to, like...
It's just so specific, like an antique for my whatever, and it's just...
it was just really oddly specific. Turns out they had researched what was around this jewellery shop that they were going to pick it up. And they were like, a very specific antique shop. So we're going to this place.
Yeah.
So if I then open, like, my Find My, for example, and saw that he was by this particular ring shop, I shouldn't have any suspicions.
It's so rogue that it's almost believable.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, you can't question it because...
Well, that's the thing. I couldn't question it. And then we were all actually going away the following weekend. And so his now best man was actually getting a lift with us. And so he got in the car on that weekend and was like, oh, did you manage to get your gift for your parents? And he was like, oh, no, I didn't. Couldn't do that. It was just, I went in there and I saw it and it just wasn't the right thing. And he was like, this guy cannot lie.
Yeah.
And I was like,
It's got
I've totally believed him.
Why not? Why would you not go to London to get an antique for your parents? Like, it's just what people do these days.
Apparently so. And I then believed it, and so didn't question anything. And I was thinking back on it the other day, and one thing that should have really given it away was my fiance got home, and we'd only like moved into our house like a couple of months before that, and so he still had like loads of junk in his car that he just needed to get into the house.
Yeah.
And at that moment, he decided to bring it all in when he got in from his trip from London.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, do you need any help with that? He was like, no, I don't need any help. Like, took it straight upstairs.
No, don't come here. Nowhere near the car.
Exactly.
This specific box you cannot touch.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other box, unpack it. Yeah, go ahead, but no.
No, it was, but he decided to hide it within like a load of stuff that we hadn't yet brought into the house, because you know what it's like when you move and you kind of procrastinate, and it's just...
And then on the actual day of the proposal, wasn't there a joke about this whole new house and you couldn't get in the door?
Yeah. So on the day of the actual proposal, he obviously had the ring, and he was like, I think he was just getting anxious that I would find it or something like that.
As I imagine you probably do. It's like this really nice ring, and it's like a special moment, and then you're like, what if they find it and ruin the special moment?
Yeah, exactly. I think he was just getting a bit anxious about that. And again, he knew that if he was like, oh, shall we go for a walk, or shall we go to this specific place that's really special to us? I would know, like, instantly. And it's not like this is a surprise. You know, we've been together for 8.5 years at this point.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time coming. And it's not like this would have been a shock to anyone. So I think he was wanting to surprise me.
Yeah.
And so on this particular day, he was off work and I was going back to work. And I had booked myself a nice massage for after work, because we were about to go into the stressful period and I wanted to get myself ready. And he thought, okay, well, she's going straight from work to the massage. That means she'll be home at like 7:00. So he then planned this whole proposal for after my massage. And I'm still not forgiven him yet, because I looked like utter crap.
Full of oil.
Full of oil. I was not wearing anything nice. I had my hair tied back. I just had a bloody massage.
Yeah,
you know,
maybe
like,
you thought you were getting your nails done and it looked all nice for pictures, but no. But at least you were relaxed.
At least I was relaxed, yeah.
It was zen.
And there was a joke, right, that I was really struggling to open the front door. Like, I think my key must have been one of the ones that was, like, cut from, like, a copy. Yeah, and it was just a bit more fiddly than all the others, and I was really struggling to open the front door. And so he messaged me and went, let me know when you're on your way home, because I'll unlock the door for you, ha ha ha. Yeah. That kind of thing. And so I nearly forgot, and then just like rang him from my hands free in the car. I was like, I'm on my way back, and he was like, okay, cool, bye.
Quick, let's sort everything out. She's half an hour away.
Like, not even that. I was literally 5 minutes away from the house. So
that was tensions were high.
Tensions were high. And I walked in. And obviously I instantly knew, because there were literally candles everywhere.
So cute.
There were photos of us through the years just like dotted around the room and up the stairs. And so I was like, does that mean he wants me to follow these photos? And so I followed them up the stairs into our bedroom. And on the bed he'd put in a sort of a question mark shape, like loads more photos.
Can I cry?
and lit more candles. And he was there in a suit. Bear in mind, I'm there looking dishevelled. And he's in a suit.
It's a nice, like, I'm imagining it's quite funny, but also cute, and yeah.
But, you know, completely taken by surprise. I thought I was coming home to a stir fry.
Yeah.
You know, not a proposal.
Evening.
Yeah. He then said some nice things and asked me to marry him. And
you, of course, said yes.
I said yes, and then I think I said, oh my God, about 10 times, because that was all I could say. And I was actually really impressed that he managed to surprise me.
Well done him, because you're in the industry, and so you kind of...
Well, yeah.
You kind of, I don't know, a little bit more acute sense to the...
More, I have my ears prick up when things happen like that. So my best friend got engaged recently as well. And I didn't expect her engagement, but I knew it was coming because of things that had been said.
Okay.
And so I was like, this is interesting. But she got engaged like a month after us. So that's really fun as well.
Yeah, because you're maid of honour for
Yeah,
that.
so we're each other's maid of honour.
Nice.
But thankfully she's getting married about a year after we are. So it works out quite well in the timing. Yeah. Like, you know, the stressful point for me will be the more relaxed point for her. So that'll be good. And
you can give her some tips along the way, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would always give tips. But, you know, now I actually have experience firsthand. So. Yes.
And what you've learnt now is maybe different to what you thought you knew?
Well, there are a few things, and I like to think of myself as an expert. I do a lot of reading and writing and talking about weddings, and, you know, being part of Guides for Brides, it's one of those. We know a lot about a lot of different things and a lot about
across the board.
Yeah, across the board and across the entire wedding planning process. And a lot of my experience here has been through COVID. So I was involved in learning about the laws around like marriages and the laws around what was allowed during COVID. And I think that also gave me the opportunity to learn a lot about different cultural weddings and like how people from different countries celebrate their weddings and all of that kind of stuff. So for me, it was, you know, I feel like I know a lot, but there are still things that have come up and I've gone, oh, wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, well, that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, that wasn't in my my guide to this, so probably should add that now.
Yeah, that first-hand experience adds that extra layer to your knowledge now that you can now pay forwards, so
exactly.
to speak.
And that's why I am here and swapping places with you.
Yeah, I know.
So.
You're in the hot seat today.
Yeah,
I'm just.
It's very weird. It's very weird being in the other seat and on the other side of the room. I'm so used to that. I hope this is my better side. For the camera purpose.
Yeah. But yeah, so we are going to talk about the guest list. I think that's a good place to start because you've got to know who comes, and that's obviously quite a tricky situation to kind of weed out people and get that ABC lists going on.
Yeah, so I did follow that guide, and if you've listened to the podcast before, or if you haven't, go and listen back to like season 1 because we talked about like how to decide who will be coming to your wedding, and who will feature on the guest list and who will have big roles on the guest list and all of that kind of thing.
I know I listened to that one ahead of my interview.
Did you?
So I knew what was going on.
Perfect. And so I did follow that ABC list guide.
Yeah.
And it did work. It genuinely worked for me. Which is good. The only difficulty is I have a lot of family who live overseas.
Yeah.
And while some of them were on the A list or the B list, it was a little bit like, they can't be on any other list. Because if they do come to the wedding, they are going to have to be there for the whole day. I can't ask them to fly all the way from South Africa or from Dubai for them to then not be invited to the whole day. Exactly.
Thanks for coming, but...
Yeah. Thanks for coming all this way. But here's a live stream that you could have watched at home. But that was the difficulty for me, was like, actually, you know, all of them had to be on the B list. And so I'd have to find a venue that was big enough for, if in some odd reason, every single person who was on, like, who lives overseas in my family was able to fly in, then they'd all have to be there for the whole day. So I had to find a venue that would have enough capacity for that. Yeah. And then it was also things like, you know, my fiance's family is all in like one area.
Yeah.
So you could guarantee that the vast majority of them will be coming.
Yeah.
So they literally all are within a 50-mile radius. It's quite ridiculous.
You've got plus ones?
Oh yeah, so that is the other difficulty. So with overseas family, plus ones was a little bit tricky because I might not usually invite all of everyone's partners, especially if I don't know them quite well. But if they're flying in,
Yeah,
they are on the
like,
list.
You're on your own.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, you're not coming until I know you're in this foreign country and you've never been here before, but you can't come to the wedding, by the way. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen.
You can watch the live stream, but thanks for taking the journey over.
Exactly. And that was like something really tricky. And I don't think people really talk about that.
Yeah.
So, you know, managing the overseas sort of family, the tricky side of that.
Yeah.
And then of course, like, plus ones, who do you actually give one to? And while we did kind of touch on this in that sort of initial podcast about the guest list, I actually found it a lot trickier than I thought I would to decide who would be on that list. And, you know, those, for me, I kind of had to set a rule of, are they married, yes or no?
Yeah, because you don't want someone who's been with the boyfriend for 2 months and then it all turns drama and
Nah, I just can't be doing that. And then second being, have we met them? Do we spend time with them? Are they a friend or are they just an acquaintance?
Yeah.
And those were the two easiest ways to sort of narrow it down, because I've got family friends in Essex, for example, who have said to me already they're coming to the wedding, even though, you know, invitations haven't been sent out yet.
Well, that's fun.
That's nice and easy for me.
Yeah.
For only one of their daughters, the only time I have met her husband was at their wedding, which was 2018.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've only met this guy once, but they're married.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those where it's like the exception to the rule. And I was invited to their wedding. So
yeah, it's one of those, like, I'm invited to your party, so you can
Exactly. So that's how we sort of decided that. Whereas where like it's maybe one of my partner's cousins, and I've never met their boyfriend and they only live like 40 minutes down the road, I'm a bit like, I've never met your boyfriend.
Yeah.
So sorry.
And that's how you've kind of narrowed it down and made it easier for yourself to be like, well, this person's not coming and that's why, and so that makes more sense for them not to come as well because we've set this rule across the board sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I'm treating a lot of like my friends who are in the wedding party.
Yeah.
It's slightly different, but for those that are just in the general wedding congregation or in like the reception, I've kind of had to put my foot down on that because otherwise the guest list just goes out of control.
And plus, otherwise you might not have people that you actually really want there.
Yeah.
Because it's been taken up by a spot that is maybe, you still want them there. It'd be nice to have them there, but they are lower down the list than this other person.
And that's it. Like the way we did our big list, so the list that you write where you can literally have every single person that you can think of that you would have in an ideal world, no capacity issues, no budget issues.
Just absolutely everyone
you've ever spoken to in your life on this list. And then you prioritise them, right? Well, when it came to some of these plus ones, I don't even know their names.
Yeah.
So it's like, actually, if I don't even know their names, they're not coming.
Yeah, I'm not paying how much for them to eat.
Well, yeah, and that was the other thing we did was if we thought, okay, well, would we pay, I think what I'm trying to work out, so the cost per head for food and drink at our wedding is like about £95 per person.
Mm-hmm.
So do I want to spend £95 on this person that I don't even know their name?
If you were taking them out for a meal, would you pay that?
No, exactly, yeah. So the answer is no.
Yeah.
But maybe I'd treat them to a £15 evening meal, you know.
Nice snack.
When I wanted to meet them. So that so that's the difference.
I think that's quite a good way to think about it. Just sort of, do I value this person? Like when it's an actual monetary figure on their head, it's kind of like
Yeah, exactly. And every single person you invite to your wedding has a cost to their head.
Yeah, even the kids.
Yeah, even the kids. I mean, I've had to limit kids to the wedding. Thankfully, we're like one of the first people in our sort of friendship group that's getting married, so we didn't really need to worry too much about children. But on my side of the family, it's more there's more people that's travelling further, and what I don't want to do is ask people to leave their kids behind. And also there are children there that I'd like involved in the wedding. So we've managed to keep it down to 5 children in total, which
in a grand scheme of things,
is it's low. So that's positive for me, because even the kids are like £25 per person.
Yeah.
So toddlers are 15 quid. So
Racking it up.
even cheaper. No, but yeah, it's, you know, even kids still have a cost to their head, and you know, that's the one of the things you need to find out, like, from your venue, if you do plan to have children there. Like, don't assume they're free.
Yeah.
They're not.
And because didn't you try and see what the venue do for the kids to make it special for them as well?
Yeah, one of the reasons we chose our venue was because they sort of treat the kids as special as they would the other wedding guests.
Yeah, which
and
is nice.
you know, when kids miss out on stuff, that's when they start misbehaving.
Yeah.
And they start getting a little bit annoyed.
Yeah.
So I really wanted them to feel involved. So when they arrive, they get like a lemonade and everyone else gets a fizz. And they have their own little meal, which will be, let's face it, it'll be something like chicken nuggets, because they'll eat that.
Yeah. Happy days.
They'll eat that. And then when we have the toast, the kids get, like, in a champagne flute, they'll get lemonade. And that's really nice, because, you know, when I was younger, all I wanted at the Christmas table was a glass of champagne.
Yeah, you want to feel special.
I want to feel special too, so whack out the schlur.
I had like a bubble bath, and it was like golden, and I was like, oh, this is fancy.
Yeah.
I feel very...
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, when you feel special and fancy, especially at a wedding, you're going to be like, oh, this is really exciting, and I'm really into this.
Smile for all the pictures.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And so, speaking of children, did you put anything on the invite to sort of indicate that, oh, sorry, your child isn't actually invited? Is it just Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, or have you...
Well, I think when we do send out our invites, we're not... Thankfully, like, you know, we don't have a lot of friends that do have children. So I don't think it'll be too, like, I don't think it'll be too much of an issue. But I think what we might do is put on our wedding website that it's only the people named on the invitation are going to be invited. But as I've learnt, people don't read. I think it's a very common, like, being on, like, wedding TikTok, I think it's a very common pet peeve for couples that are planning their wedding. People don't read. And I wish I'd known this before I got engaged.
You'd think people would be like, oh, well, it doesn't say their name, so maybe not. It's the same with, like, a +1. It's like, if it doesn't say the name, don't just assume you can bring X, Y, Z. Like... Yeah,
that's the thing. They just don't read. But I will be putting it on the wedding website. So if anyone asks me, I'll be like, oh, it's on the wedding website.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. We're just going to name everyone that is invited, and, you know, put their full name. So maybe not just like Mr. and Mrs. or Mrs. and Mrs. X.
Yeah.
It will be who, like, we might put their first names to just make it very clear.
Yeah.
Who is invited.
Crystal clear, as clear as possible, so there's no, like, awkward situation on the day or in the lead up. You don't need that.
Exactly. And, you know, there are friends that I'm not worried that they'll want to bring a +1, but they're not going to get one. So I kind of feel like, for example, my partner's best man, he's already said to us, like, you know, if I have a partner at that time, would I be able to get a +1? And I said to him, like, well, it kind of depends. Like, if you've had them as a partner for long enough, will I remember them? You know, like, will I've met them before? Like, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you don't want someone you kind of don't get along with, or you don't know. It's just kind of...
But also, that's his best man.
Exactly. So it's an important person in your life.
Yeah. Whereas if it's just like a friend that I had at uni that wants to bring a boyfriend that I've never met, then it would be a case of, like, actually, I'm really sorry, but no, like, and then I will just, I think, to tell people that their partner can't come, or that actually their kids aren't invited, you can do that quite politely.
Yeah, you don't want to be rude, and it's like, I'm
not concerned about that at all, because I think I can do that quite politely in the sense of, you know, literally blaming it on the budget.
Yeah.
Literally saying, like, you know, well, actually, unfortunately, I haven't included you a +1 because my budget doesn't allow for another guest.
Yeah, not made of money, sorry.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And I don't think, until you're in the wedding planning sphere, I don't think people realise like how much a wedding costs per head.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make it slightly cheaper. You can do whatever you want. You can do it all DIY, and it's much cheaper per head. But if you want to have that sort of wedding experience, it's not cheap.
No.
And to be able to sort of say to yourselves, okay, this is what I want. It's going to cost me £75 a head. You can actually say to that person, actually, another guest for the whole day is going to cost me £75 per head.
Yeah.
And it's not in the budget. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, it's not much you can do.
No.
But say, I'm really sorry, but it doesn't, like, I can't quite cover it. Or
Yeah. And there might be a compromise. It might be that I can say, well, I can't have them there on the day because the capacity or my budget doesn't allow. But if they're willing to come for the evening reception, then by all means, you know.
Yeah, or
it's
let's
case
go
by
out for a
case.
drink after. We'll celebrate in our own way with everyone there, kind of
exactly.
thing.
Case by case basis. And I think that's the only way you can manage it. But again, people do not read. So I won't be surprised that when I do send out these invitations, whether someone actually asks for.
I don't know, I think I'd feel awkward being like, oh, can I have this person? I think I'd...
And that's the thing, I'm hoping that most people would.
I'd be like, oh no, I'm not going to ask that, I'll just go on my own.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the people that I have planned to be like a solo invite. I have plans in place to introduce them to each other.
Oh, you're doing a little matchmaking.
Not quite matchmaking, I wouldn't call it that, but like introduce them to other people.
Make sure they feel comfortable and not like stood in the corner.
And they have a friendly face that they can look for.
Yeah, definitely.
Or like are in a group chat with someone, they can message and go, oh, I'm like 5 minutes away, are you there? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah. So thinking of your wedding venue and obviously price per head and everything like that, how did you actually pick your venue in the end?
So looking back on it, I probably put a lot of restrictions on myself. And one of my tips would be for people, like, if you want to have your pick of the venues, don't put too many restrictions on yourself.
Right.
My partner and I are actually getting married on our 10-year anniversary,
which is cute.
Which is really cute. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really pleased about that. But it is a Saturday in October,
which is also perfect. But
but it's
awkward.
Also slightly awkward because, you know, peak wedding season tends to be April to sort of September, October time anyway. So I was kind of expecting the price points of venues to be still in the sort of the higher end at that point. But it is also, you know, peak wedding period being like May to September, that sort of like real summer point.
Yeah.
It's the first weekend after that.
Right.
So
there's still a little bit of over.
Yeah. So I think it will be one of those venues, one of those things where lots of people will want that date because it's close enough to the summer end point.
It's kind of still nice weather.
Yeah, it's still, you can kind of estimate the weather to be okay.
Yeah.
But it's still an awkward time because I think it would be quite a popular date. And when I said that to some of the colleagues here, one of our colleagues, she worked part-time for a florist, and she was like, we've got so many bookings for that date already. And I was like,
That makes me feel great.
Yeah, but it was actually a really good thing to know, because then I was like, better get cracking then. So we did a lot of our budget and guest list initial planning like really quickly. We did that within a week. And then we were searching for our venue. I think we booked it. So we got engaged on the 21st of June. I started when we realised that our anniversary was going to be on a Saturday, we were like, we need that date.
Yeah.
And so I was like, right, that means we better start getting some ideas in place, because it's only 15 months away, and therefore we need to book things, because couples tend to book about 18 months in advance for their wedding venue.
And you've obviously got that added pressure of like, my wedding needs to be great because I'm in the industry, and it's like, I need the perfect flowers and the perfect photographer. It's just like...
Yeah, honestly, it is. I haven't... everyone said to me, oh no, you don't need to worry about expectations. And I'm like, I do worry about expectations.
Yeah.
Like my mum was saying to me about, oh, you always say, do your wedding your way. Do it, you need to plan the wedding that you want. Don't worry about what other people think. And then I was there like, Mum, slightly different situation, but also, I know where you're coming from, but also I want this to be really good. So, what do I do?
It's that kind of, it's like, not panic, but like sort of like, extra layer of pressure.
I mean, I'm under a year to the wedding now, and I
Yes.
thought I would feel the pressure at this point. I am so chilled now.
Because you did everything early
Yeah,
on.
I did everything early, and I'm so chilled now. But I was the stress when I was trying to find the venue was extreme.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I did not expect to feel so stressed. I've had reports from my best friend to say exactly the same thing.
Right.
Like, she was so stressed until she found her venue, and then she was like, okay,
And breathe.
everything else is gonna fall into place now.
But she was less restricted on the date and the sort of area because she wanted to be quite close to home still and that sort of thing, whereas...
Yeah, so I am, well, my partner and I wanted to, we had a few other restrictions in place. So we had the date, but also that location-wise, we knew that, like, one of his cousins had gotten married, but in, like, Manchester, which is about 3 hours away from us. And his nan lives about half an hour away from us, 40 minutes away. And so we wanted her to be able to come. And I don't think she was able to go to his cousin's wedding. And so it was really important for him that his nan could come.
She'll be there.
She'll be able to be there. And so we kind of went, well, that means if we stick a pin in it and we want to restrict ourselves to about an hour's distance from your nan's house, then we're looking at this particular area, which just happens to be smack bang in the middle of the Cotswolds.
So added prices.
A little bit of additional pricing there.
Yeah.
But still, we were like, actually, you know what, the Cotswolds
And
kind of suits
beautiful,
us. Yeah. It's I love the Cotswolds. You go in there and it's literally like chocolate box cottages and time kind of stops and gently rolling hills and
all the words.
All the romanticisms of the Cotswolds. And so that kind of suited us. And, you know, so we had restrictions on the location, restrictions on the date. And we had guest list restrictions as well. So we knew we wouldn't be able to afford a 200-person wedding.
Yeah.
We knew that just wasn't going to be the case. And so we were like, okay, what's a nice number that we would be happy with? And we were like, well, 80-ish in the day, and then capacity for more people to join us in the evening. That would be great.
Yeah, so not something tiny, but something in the middle. So that
something
you can
in
manage.
the middle, something average size, which will be manageable for the budget. And then, of course, the budget, which is the other restriction. And, I'm the person that goes to the National Wedding Show and talks all about budget. And, but boy, was I not prepared for that. Was I not prepared for how stressful the budget would be? Because I thought, I know all the theory of what we need to do. And I followed my own advice.
Yeah.
I did it all correctly. And I was like, I think, what was it? I was researching venues and I was like, right, average couple spends around 45% of the budget on the venue and catering. Right, so that means I need to look for venues with X. Good news is we're a few grand over the average cost of a wedding, so it won't be difficult. It won't be difficult to find a venue.
That extra bit of budget.
We've got a little bit extra wiggle room. It'll be great.
Great food, that sort of thing.
I literally found myself going, how the hell do these people plan a wedding like this with this budget?
Yeah.
Like how? Like I was
good for them, but I'm struggling here.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of had to remind myself to take a step back, to look at actually what we wanted and what the priorities were. The priorities were pretty venue, really good food, and to be able to have a lot of the people that we love around us. Yeah. So, on the venue search front, we were like, once we took a step back, it was much easier to look at it.
Yeah.
So my advice for couples, like, you will get stressed about the budget. You will get stressed about the budget. Take a step back. Take a step back, breathe, remember what's actually important, and then go from there.
Yeah.
You might, and I had to restart my search.
Because you were quite disappointed with one thing, weren't you?
Yeah, I went to a venue, well, okay, so I inquired with about 30 venues.
Mm-hmm.
I went to see 4.
Right.
And then obviously I picked the one. But I started off inquiring with 20 venues, and I went to go see 2. And I thought we'd found the one. But then we went home and we totted up all the pricing of what we'd actually want from that venue. We could have had less, but what we'd actually want.
Yeah.
And it was about 4,000 or 5,000 over what the venue budget would be.
Yeah.
And
that would mean scraping back on other things.
Yeah. And I couldn't do that. Well, we had an argument about it.
A nice little discussion.
A nice little discussion about money, which will happen. Expect that particular budget argument. My best friends had exactly the same argument.
Yeah.
And everyone I've spoken to was like, oh yeah, we had that argument.
Yeah.
It's like, thanks for telling me.
Yeah. Thanks for prepping me so I could get my points lined up.
Exactly, yeah. But, you know, we had that discussion about actually, you know, what's more important here. And my fiance was like, I categorically cannot spend over X amount of money.
Yeah.
And I was like, but why?
But it's a wedding.
And then, you know, I kind of had to step back and go, okay, what battles do I actually want to fight here? Because actually for us, it's not about how much money is spent on the day. It's about these things. And so while I wouldn't be happy if we spent less than this amount on the wedding, because being in the industry, I know what that kind of...
you want that experience for everyone.
And how much that experience costs.
Yeah.
Actually, we don't need to go to this point.
We don't need to go crazy to have a good time.
No, exactly. And it was... You know, and the thing is, like, everyone kept saying to me, but you always tell people that it's, you know, it needs to be an amount of money that you're comfortable with, and that you don't want to overspend on your wedding because all you'd be thinking about is how much money you've spent. And I actually forgot that.
Yeah.
As I was planning.
Get your own advice. That's where you went wrong.
Yeah, I forgot my own advice. And I got carried away.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you find yourself doing that, just, again, take a step back. Remember that actually what's important here, and make sure that you're happy with the budget. You can spend £1,000 or millions of pounds on a wedding. You literally there's no wherever you want to spend, whatever you're comfortable with.
It's a sliding scale.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, I kind of forgot that. A wedding doesn't have to cost a certain amount. It's more, are you comfortable with what you're spending? So if you're comfortable spending 50 grand, good for you. Crack on.
You'll have a great day. But
if you're already comfortable spending 10 grand, great, crack on.
If you've got beautiful jam jars on the table that you've asked all your family to donate to you, then it's a nice day.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. And I was watching a lot of wedding TikToks, and I kind of came across a few that were like, you know, what are people actually going to remember?
Yeah.
Like, what is most important to you, and what are people actually going to remember? And, you know, there's so much pressure now with, like, Instagram and having an Instagrammable wedding day and all that kind of thing. Even when you're not in the industry, that actually, I realised how easy it was to get carried away and stressed about how much you're spending. Yeah. But actually, you know, it was a case of, take a step back. Are you comfortable with this amount? Because at the end of the day, you're paying for it.
It's coming out of your pocket.
And so if you're comfortable with what you're spending, then great, go plan away. But if you are not, then maybe you need to go back to the drawing board, take a step back, think about what's important, think about those priorities that you and your partner discussed.
Yeah,
in
right
those
at the
initial
start,
stages, and work out what you can and can't compromise on. Because, you know, we've had this discussion, and we have sort of since doing our research, have increased the spend slightly, but not exponentially.
Yes.
You know, because we we realised what we wanted we couldn't get with what we had.
Yeah.
So we would need to boost that. And that's also fine.
But to a level that you were still comfortable with, not blowing
not
the budget,
blowing the budget. No, and that's the thing. And then I revisited the budget when we had that discussion and went, okay, well that means we've got this extra amount of money to spend on the venue and catering. Yeah. And that's what actually got us to the venue that we were happy with.
Yeah. And so that venue, it's kind of less traditional, isn't it?
Yeah, so I always thought, again, this is the thing, this is why I got carried away. I always thought I would have a traditional wedding venue. And I did fall in love with a venue, which then triggered said discussion. But yeah, we've now gone, actually, what do we want? Where can we get that from? Oh, okay, hadn't thought about these options. Let's go have a look.
Yeah.
And then actually it was fitted us to a T. It's, we wanted somewhere that would have good food, a nice atmosphere, would be pretty surroundings, have enough space for our guests. But I think I didn't consider the customer service element.
Right.
And my partner is very much, he's very much left a lot of the wedding planning to me. And I'm sure it's the same for lots of other couples that are listening. That one person is leading the wedding planning and the other person gets consulted.
Yeah, it's like this or this.
Yeah, yes, that Chandler and Monica thing, like roses or lilies. That's exactly it. And then I still do the Monica thing where I'm like, roses or lilies?
This one.
This one, please.
This one.
But yeah, still, he's very much like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just talk to me about it. And then if we need to make any decisions together, we need to make that decision together. But, I'm trusting you to
get on with it.
Yeah. And when we'd seen the other venues, he didn't really have an opinion. He was like, oh, well, you like it, so that's nice. And I was like, okay, cool. That means he likes it. But actually, when we saw our venue, I think he sort of felt something, know, and
when
he got a bit excited. Yeah, he got a bit excited about it. And when we were leaving after our tour and our meeting, to go away and sort of do the maths and everything like that, he sort of said, oh, well, I suppose I have to think about what suit I want now. And I was like, oh, an opinion!
Yeah.
Like, it's something he's now interested. That's triggered something in him, and I really like that venue as well. So actually, that's possibly it.
And now I know the reactions to the other venues maybe weren't so much.
Yeah, exactly. And he's one of those people that no matter how many times I ask him, oh, what do you think? He'll be, oh, do you like it?
Yeah.
Like, think about me first, and I'm like, oh, actually, it's your wedding too.
Yeah.
You
we're
need
both
to like
in this,
it. Well.
like, I obviously do mind more than you, perhaps, but we're still both in this together. It's still our day. It's not just my day.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what I'm now more conscious of that.
Yes.
Than I was previously, which is something else I've learnt. It's also helped with like, what battles do I actually want to fight for this?
Yeah.
Because if he's not happy with how much money we're spending, for example, then I don't want him to be uncomfortable on the wedding.
You can't have that sort of, not resentment, but that sort of like, oh, this is awkward because I know how much this dessert cost us because it was this much more than whatever. It's just straight across the board.
Yeah.
We're both happy. This is great.
Yeah, exactly.
Next step.
Next step, please. So there were a few things I couldn't compromise on. And, it was several discussions about it. Like, for example, for me, I know that my whole family will be on the dance floor the entire night.
Yeah.
His not so much, maybe a handful. But mine, the entire night, will be the dancing part of the wedding. And I was like, for that, I want a really good band. Mm-hmm. That one thing I really want is a band. And I was like, not compromising on that.
Yeah.
And he realised that and was like, okay, fine.
Yeah, that's your thing.
That's your thing. We'll do that. If that's what's going to make you really happy and really enjoy the day, then great. For him, there are other things, like he was like, I really want really good food. I want really good food. Mm. And we went to our menu tasting recently and he was like, I'm delighted now.
That's me.
This is me. I'm done. Yep, I'm really pleased with this.
Well done, us.
Yeah, we've picked the right place. You know that, and that's the kind of thing that. Yeah, I think he felt a lot happier when we had done that menu tasting.
Yeah, and then in terms of the budget as well, I know you were saying that there are ways to do it cheaper, but I think it's like DIY stuff. It's too much stress for you.
I am the least DIY person out there. I just don't have the patience.
Right. It gets very fiddly sometimes.
I like doing, like, I've done pottery in the past. I really enjoy doing that kind of thing, but it's like one big project. One project to work on.
It looks nice, but it took...
Put my heart and soul into it. It's taken weeks. But, you know,
yeah.
But when it comes to wedding DIY, if I can't do it watching Netflix and at the same time,
multitasking,
then it's not for me.
Right.
Whereas, like, my best friend is the complete opposite. She's doing a lot of stuff DIY. She's invested in a Cricut machine. I've never heard of this before, but
like
the printer thing, the cutter and the printer, and I don't know.
Wow, she's really gone all in.
She's gone all in, and that's the thing. It's great because, you know, someone is willing to do this DIY for me. Sorry, Em. But she, you know, that's the thing. I can ask her to help me with stuff, and she'd be really up for that.
Yeah.
Whereas me, not so much.
You'd rather pay someone to get it done.
That's the thing. And that's the thing. I know that. Yes, I could do this thing myself, but do I want to? No.
Yeah, and some people do, and that's great.
Yeah.
But
yeah, exactly. If you want to do that, great. You go for it. Do whatever you want. Do whatever makes you happy. Your wedding, your way. But for me, no. I would rather pay someone, and that's the thing. I will overthink it.
Oh yeah.
I will really overthink it and just make mountains out of molehills, and I'm like,
that is not exactly censor.
Don't need that stress in my life. I'll pay someone to do that stress for me.
Yeah, and be happy because it's done. It's ticked off. But
yeah, exactly. But that doesn't mean we haven't got creative with the budget, because you know, we have used friends and family for certain things. Like, my cousin is a silversmith, so she's going to be, well, we're making our own wedding rings, but she's going to supervise. And then and we're going to go to her dad's studio in Wales and do all of it there, and
make a evening,
make a day weekend out of it. And then my fiance's cousin is a graphic designer, so she's designing all of our wedding invitations, and you know, we're paying for the printing, but she's offering to do that for us.
That's nice. It's nice you've got family in places.
Yeah, family in the places that we would need them to be in. But equally, if we didn't have that, would I have paid someone to do it? Probably.
Yeah, because it's just, that's just you. That's just easier for you. It's done. It's dusted. It's better.
Yeah, exactly.
And so earlier you were speaking about sort of restrictions you placed on yourself when trying to find that venue. You wanted it to be within this pinpoint area and on this specific date. So how did you kind of choose after that and sort of deal with that and search for the actual dream venue and that sort of thing?
Well, I think, you know, I went to the obvious place. I went to the Guys for Rides venue finder. Of course I did. But I went to the venue finder on our website, and then I went to Google and all those other places. So I've searched in a variety of areas. But the great thing about our website is that we've got an availability search.
Yes.
So I was able to search for wedding venues that had that specific date available, and if any came up, I was like, right, cool, I'll send them a message.
Because that solves one of the problems instantly.
Immediately. Yeah. So that was my first port of call. And then after that, I was sort of like looking in the like local area and sort of just went a more general search, because, you know, not everyone will use that calendar. So I did a sort of more general search on Guides for Brides. I searched for Gloucestershire because that is probably the most likely county that we were going to get married in, and we are getting married in now. But I also like looked around, so I was a little bit more flexible, and I got to a point actually where I was starting to panic because I was getting emails back from venues going, oh, sorry, we actually are booked on that day, or but we've got these dates available, and I was like, no, I want this date. To which lots of our colleagues here were like, it's just a date though. Like,
yeah, but I think because it is that 10 year, like any other year it was maybe different, like 9 years it's different,
Yeah.
but it's a Saturday, it was meant to be.
yeah,
Like,
that's exactly it. It was like meant to be on this date. And that's fine, but I think I also had to, like, in the back of my mind go, if you can't find somewhere, you might have to compromise on this thing, which I didn't want to, but also thinking back through COVID when people had to move their wedding date, you know, we did have to say, like, I know you had an attachment to this, but it's just a date. You can still celebrate on that date. It's not an issue.
It's so easy to get attached to like, things. Like, I know I do. I'm like, wow, that was when this happened. That was
you get so attached to it, and I was having to, like, remind myself that actually I might have to compromise.
You might have to be a bit more flexible.
Yeah, exactly. And it was things like, oh, okay, well, this date is more expensive than I actually anticipated in the first place, so I might have to go a bit more off-peak, and that's fine, but if I can find a venue in our price range that we like, that's got that date available, then I'll be happier. And I said to my partner as well, like, okay, can we expand the search to an hour and a half?
Yeah.
Rather than the hour? Because, you know, we can always pay for her to stay a night somewhere at the venue, at a hotel.
Or like halfway in between.
Yeah, we can do that as well. Like, that might be a way we can compromise on the location. And he was happy with that. But it turns out that we've managed to find a venue that's literally like 20 minutes from our house, so even better.
Easy. Can walk.
Not quite. But yeah, it's a nice, easy sort of location. Yeah. We did a lot of research. I sent a lot of inquiries. And then once I had feedback, I then started to narrow my search down and was like, right, okay, we like this venue. What is the capacity? Does that suit us? Okay, what do their menus look like? Do we like that? And
where's the dance floor?
Yeah, where's the dance floor? Is there space for a band? Do they have noise restrictions? Like, all of these questions.
All those priorities come back up, and like, you've got to make sure that it suits everything.
Yeah, exactly. And getting engaged in sort of the summer period and wanting to get things booked very quickly meant that I was unfortunately unable to go to a lot of wedding fairs and sort of open days, because they don't tend to happen in the summer. They tend to happen in like the autumn and the like sort of January to March period. So we missed out on that. But that's because we wanted that specific date. Yeah. If we were willing to compromise more, then we probably would have gone, oh, you know what, we'll just wait for a couple of months.
And then see all these places.
Go to their wedding fair or go to their open day or something like that. But yeah, and that's what I've learned as well, like from a professional perspective, like actually thinking about it, I booked my venue within 3 weeks.
Yeah, which is quite unheard of, really.
Yeah, which, you know, sounds quite fast, but how many other couples are doing that? Like, probably quite a few.
I guess that's the first big thing, and it's like that kind of sets the tone for everything else in a way.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, part of me was like, just get this venue booked, because I am so stressed about finding this venue. Literally, after we booked it, the stress just like melted away.
I was like, now I get to look at dresses.
Now I get to look at dresses. Now I get to think about food and book my photographer and all of that kind of stuff. It was, once that big thing was ticked off, the pressure released. Melted away. I think what's important to remember is that everyone is going to have different priorities when it comes to their venue. There are plenty of them out there. Yeah. You know, you just have to find them.
You just have to be willing to put in that effort to sort of research and make sure that it's definitely right, because there's nothing, I guess, it's all about love, but if you feel awkward or, like you say, you know you spent too much, or it's just, that's always going to be at the back of your mind, and that might stay with you for a while, even after the wedding, when you're like, oh, well, we couldn't actually go on our honeymoon for a few years because we had to resave up and that sort of thing. So
yeah, and that's it. It ticked all the boxes, our venue. And I think one of the things that I would advise couples now, looking back, is that the customer service of those initial venue viewings are so important. Are they speaking to just one of you? Because, like, as I said, we went to see 4 venues, and 3 of them, the coordinator just spoke to me. They didn't speak to my partner. They just spoke to me. And looking back on it, I was like, why was I even interested in that venue if they
Yeah.
weren't even acknowledging him? And how it's his wedding as well.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that's the kind of thing that I was thinking about, like, you know, the customer service aspect. If they aren't delivering good customer service and they aren't making you feel welcome and you're just another number.
On that initial meeting as well,
Yeah.
that's not 5 months down the line when if different things are being planned. That initial meeting is like your first interview. It's got to be good.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't feel happy, then it's not your venue.
Yeah.
You know, your venue you will know when it's your venue.
It's like the dress. It's
Yeah.
like the dress, you know.
It's like the dress and your partner. You'll know when
know.
you sort of go there and you see it and you speak to the team member. Like my best friend said the same thing. The way she did the search is that she used our site, she used Google and all those other places, and then she narrowed down. So I think she even sent in, because she wasn't restricted by location or by date, so she had like a pick. All she knew is she was like, you know what, we just need to like it.
Yeah.
And so she sort of gave herself a bit of a buffer, but they were even like, you know, we're in like the middle of England in Oxfordshire, right? She was even willing to go to Jersey for her wedding.
Yeah.
So, you know, everyone's going to be different. So she then inquired with venues that were in her budget, and, you know, she then, at that point, when she had narrowed down, she showed her partner 10 or 15 wedding venues that were in the budget, she liked a lot, and that she thought the menus were good and that they would have goods, like everything, all the correspondence was good service. She then said to him, okay, can you pick 5 and we'll go see them?
Yeah.
You know, that's how she worked it.
Yeah.
Whereas I know our colleague Elaine, her major restriction is the number of people.
Yeah,
and
she wants a massive wedding.
She wants a massive wedding. And then the location, she doesn't want to have to travel too far.
Yeah.
So, you know, with things like the budget and the number of people being at conflict and still wanting a nice place, it does become a little bit more difficult to
Those
find.
filters just work against each other sometimes, but
yeah, they can work against each other, and that's where you've got to know what you're happy to compromise on.
And there'll definitely be something that you're perfectly happy with that's going to be great. But...
Yeah, exactly. You'll find something, but you might have to make a couple of compromises. It's not about finding the perfect venue, it's about finding the ideal venue, because not everywhere is going to tick every single one of your boxes. And, you know, having this idea of perfection is only going to make you spiral.
It's just unrealistic. It's just it's not going to happen, even though you might will it to happen and all these things.
And you might be lucky, you might find the perfect venue. But if you go looking for it, you're probably going to struggle. But it's kind of like searching for a house, right? So you see something on Rightmove or on the market or wherever you're looking, and then you walk into the house and you're like, oh, I actually can't put a dining table in there. A dining table is really important to me. Yeah. And you're like, oh, that was going to be the one. But actually, you walk in there and it's not. And I was like, what actually do we need when we were searching for our house? Then I took the same approach with the wedding venue. Like, what actually do we need? We need it to have capacity for this many people. We need it to have good food, and we need it to have space for a band. We don't need it to have availability on our wedding date that we would like to have, but it would be ideal if it did. Yeah. And that's the attitude that we started going with. Because after that sort of initial disappointment of seeing a venue and falling in love with it and then going, oh, actually we can't afford it. Yeah. It was more like, okay, I don't need the perfect one. I just need one that ticks these boxes, and if it ticks these 2, then great. Yeah. And then we found the venue. Yeah. And it fit a lot of the boxes. Yeah. You know? I think the only box it doesn't tick is having like outdoor space for wedding photos. Yeah. But they were like, oh, you can use this and you can use this field and you can do that. And it like, okay. Great. Cool. 10 minute drive, 5 minute walk. You know, great. Yeah. Perfect.
It doesn't have to be exactly there. It's a nice walk, get you away from the stress of everything else. And...
Yeah, exactly. It's so... I think when you find the venue, you know because of those things, and as long as it ticks your needs, then great.
Yeah, and then when it is a great venue, then you are willing to make those compromises for it to make it work, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you kind of get the vibe.
The vibe.
The vibe.
Okay, so we've spoken about budget and your venue, and you go to all these shows and talk about 45%, this figure that's sort of like the golden number. What actually did you spend on your venue?
Okay, so the golden number of 45% is a starting point, and I make that really, really clear in the sort of the talks and stuff that I do. But my actual spend was 53%.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not too bad. And actually, I think that's because good food was a priority for us. So we were like spending more. Like we wanted the good wine package, and we wanted the good food package, and we wanted to have a cheese wedding cake and all of that kind of stuff. So it's all of that is a bit more additional, but then we did think about our priorities and go, okay, what can we cut back on? And that's where like family members came in, you know. We're paying for only the printing of our wedding stationery because his cousin's going to design it for us, and you know, my cousin is going to help us make our rings, so that makes that aspect cheaper. And you know, we're in a position where we're quite lucky that our parents have said that they'd like to pay for certain aspects.
Right.
So it's made it slightly cheaper for us, but although we don't want to go over budget for them. So it's helped us identify where the priorities are. Probably spent a bit more on my band than I probably would have wanted to initially, but
that was a priority.
That's a priority, and that's what I was like, that's what I want, and that's what it cost. So we then were like, right, well, where can we shuffle things around in the budget? And my wedding dress ended up being cheaper than I budgeted for.
Nice.
Yeah, which is always great. I think it was like £500 cheaper than I budgeted for. So that gave us more wiggle room.
Yeah.
And
to cover those hidden fees sometimes maybe and
that
sort of thing.
Exactly. It means that we can, it's all about being flexible. You know, I always thought the budget would be, this is how much we're going to spend, and this is the 10% buffer zone. And actually, it's kind of worked out as a bit more like, okay, this is where our starting point is. We knew we were going to have to wiggle things around and sort of be flexible with other aspects, but actually, every time, we've just done that every time. And that's the best advice I can give, is like, you know, you will need to fiddle about with your budget. Yeah. You know, that happens. It's going to happen all the time. You know, supermarket prices have gone up so much recently that I bet lots of people are fiddling about with their budgets at home for their general day-to-day stuff. So, so for us, we knew that would be the case. Mm-hmm. And you know, the increase in prices recently has made us look back and adjust what we were happy spending. Yeah. But we're happy with what we're spending now anyway.
And communication is key.
Communication is key. Speak to your partner about stuff. You know, my partner didn't realise, even though he's come to the shows, he's listened to the talks, and he's listened to the podcast, he didn't realise that the venue and catering cost wasn't just like how much the wedding was going to be.
That's it. That's all you have to do.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't think he realised how many other aspects there were, is what I'm saying, and how much those aspects actually cost.
And the comparison between like pre-COVID and post-COVID.
And everything like that. Prices have increased recently, and so we had to reevaluate that. And that's fine. It meant that we had to go, okay, things are costing a bit more than we anticipated, so let's go back to the drawing board. Let's see where's our end point. What are we happy with the maximum spend? Because obviously, like pre-COVID, post-COVID, the war,
you can't there's no comparison to sort of recent years and recent things, so it is that sort of fiddle around and
make sure you're comfortable, and that's it. And it's just having that level of flexibility where, you know, I always had that sort of 10% as the sort of cost that I would forget about buffer, and that's sort of come into it now, is that I've calculated what that 10% will be. I've put that as a grey cost in my wedding budget, because I'm like, well, if I forgot about it, it's going in that one, because then I can sort of measure what I remembered and what I didn't. So far so good on that, by the way.
Good, well done.
Thank you.
Goal achieved.
Goal achieved. But I think we sort of were like, okay, actually, doing our research. We need to be spending more than this to have the wedding that we want. What are we most comfortable with spending?
Yeah.
And yeah, from that point, it's been much easier. And we've just been a bit more flexible with it. So, yeah. But I understand that some couples will not have the benefit of being so flexible. So,
and maybe not the benefit of having parents that would
Yeah.
want to chip in or would love to, but unfortunately can't at the current
Exactly.
time. So it's just...
Yeah, we count our blessings for that. But then, you know, I think my advice would be to just be as flexible as you can
Yeah.
with what you spend, and be ready to sort of move that budget around, and maybe have to go back to the drawing board. That might be the thing.
Yeah.
Like, you might have to go back to the drawing board. Like, just be prepared to do it.
And it can be easier said than done. Because
Yeah.
obviously you didn't want to change your
I
date.
didn't want to change it. I didn't want to change anything about it. I had this perfect wedding planned in my mind, and actually what I needed to think about was my ideal.
Yeah.
And yeah,
You're
that's...
going to have a great time.
Yeah, I'm like so happy with it now.
Yeah.
I'm like so chilled.
I feel like I'm so excited for you.
Thanks, Jess.
Like, ooh, wedding.
Ooh, wedding. And that's the thing, like, you know, working in the industry, I've seen so many weddings that I'm like, yeah, I'm just really prepared. Hopefully I can help prepare other couples as they listen to the podcast.
Listen for more. Okay, so I think we can wrap up there. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was slightly reversed with Nikita being in the hot seat today. But thank you for sharing what you've planned and your journey so far with your wedding, and everything you've learned, and of course everything you know and things like that. And as always, you can find us on @Guides for Brides on all social media platforms. And happy wedding planning.
Happy wedding planning. See you soon for the next episode in the season, where I will be back in that chair, which is my
Taking
preference.
over.
I like being in control, so